Thank you very much for making time to share your insights into the future of leadership. But before we go to leadership, can you tell us a little bit more about your own story? Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Denmark, and I actually grew up in the countryside. So from when I was a child, it looked like I was supposed to be a farmer. I quite quickly found out that farming was not really for me. Well, I think there's many interesting aspects to farming and being an entrepreneur, own your own destiny in that way. It was just not really me. Already from the age of 10, I was much more interested in computers and tractors. So that was the direction I went.
So what was your dream career?
Oh, I changed several times. I wanted to be a pilot, so a fighter pilot. Later, I wanted to spend my life in the army. And I don't know, in the end, I think I changed my career and my dream career every 2 years through my childhood. So that was probably where I eventually ended up. At some point, I wanted to be a professor in physics and mathematics as well. So it changed quite a bit as I was influenced by the world around me.
And who inspired you in your early days?
Well, it was a combination. My father, for example, inspired me. So at some point, I actually wanted to be a lawyer. And that came from my father. Other things, I was inspired from the things I saw around me. And I realized that while some kids might have a dream and live it out, I realized in this world where everything changes and future scientists keep talking about that in 10 years or 50 years, the jobs we have today don't exist anymore. I actually think it turned out to be my advantage that in this changing world, I'm quite easily influenced by my surroundings in terms of what I want to do.
So Christian, where did you start your career?
I actually started aside from working on a farm during all my summer holidays and so on, I started my career in the Danish Army, where I was a sergeant in the Royal Guards for a couple of years, and actually looked to make a longer career out of it. Was very close to join the Special Forces, but found out the Army was not really for me. So I left the Army and joined Copenhagen Business School, so university instead.
And then I believe you went into technology. You started at Oracle, I believe.
Yes, I did. But you can say my first real job outside of various institutions was while I was still in Copenhagen Business School. I was given this amazing opportunity to become a programmer because I have a dual degree. So I'm both computer science and business administration background from my educational background. So about a year into university, I was actually offered a job for a Danish investment bank. And I was a back-end developer, so I wrote software for them. And I supported the accounting department and so on. So when I eventually finished school, I already was quite capable of working within the Oracle technology, which was the one we used. So I got a great offer from Oracle to join as a consultant. So I moved to Oracle right after. So you can say I was already 4 years into my career. They actually hired me as a normal consultant, but less than a month later, I was a principal. They didn't raise my salary though, but it was a quick promotion.
So how did you go from development into sales?
That is a very, very good. It's a very good question, and I don't know if the story is as good. When you start in a big software company, I think our universities, at least the Danish universities, are pretty bad in educating about the real world. I had this idea I would probably want to go for a McKinsey down the line, but I wanted to learn some tech before then. So spending a couple of years, and I was project manager as well in Oracle, I got dragged more and more into sales presentations because somebody in the sales teams had realized that I did quite well in front of customers, so they pulled me in. And after I'd done that for a while, they actually decided that they would like to make me a pre-sale. So I joined the pre-sales team, which is a mixture between consultant and salesperson. And that was really where I started learning about sales. I didn't know much about sales, and sales don't always have the best of reputations. There's a lot of stereotypes around around sales. The education in sales is often anecdotal and pattern matching techniques and so on. And various people who, when they got tired of selling, set up their own consultancy and then tried to teach other people in 2 days how to become world-class sellers. But Oracle put me through a quite intense sales training, education actually internally, while being a pre-sale. So I got a lot of chances to be in front of customers. But as a pre-sale, you look at the salespeople, they make a lot more money than you. They get all the fame. You work, well, over the night, and it's a salesperson who is the famous one end of the day. I really loved pre-sales because it combined so many different skills. And I think it was a key part for me to become successful later in sales. But that was how I initially transformed towards sales. Then I did a couple of small stints where I did an internal job around competitive intelligence and a couple of things before I finally took the jump and became a real salesperson in SAP.
Now today you're the VP of Business Development?
Yes.
In Southern Europe, Middle East and Africa?
Yes, correct.
So how did you go from being a salesperson to becoming a VP?
Well, that's a really, really good question, because I always start my presentation for when I present to salespeople. I did it earlier this week. I'm here in South Africa actually for a sales training where I did day one and the introduction. I always talk about my own journey as a salesperson, because becoming a salesperson is actually very nerve-wracking. Jill Conrad have a book where she talks about the fear of becoming sales, because suddenly you manage your own destiny to a different degree. You're measured on one number and you have to hit that number. So when I started in my sales role in SAP, the first year or 9 months I was there, I ran everywhere. I tried to think like I did as a pre-sale. If I know enough about my products, if I have enough activities, I'm going to be successful. So I had a lot of meetings. I had a lot of product pitches. But when we got to New Year's Eve, so the end of our fiscal year, and about hour and a half before the end of the year, so New Year's Eve at a New Year's party, I was still only at 80% of my target. And that's not amazing to be at 80% of your target. But a colleague of mine saved me by including me in a deal and brought me to 123%. So it looked great on paper, but I didn't really have a good gut feeling about it the day after, because I really knew I was saved by a colleague and not by my own skill. So what I did here too was I changed the way I worked. I first of all started by reading pretty much anything related to sales I could get my hands on, because as mentioned, I didn't have a formal education in sales. They actually don't exist globally. There's no real sales schools. You can't take a university degree in sales. So I really looked into finding as much theory as I could. A lot of it is not great, but some of it is really good. So I used that theory to change the way I work. And there was an author a couple of years ago who actually wrote a book called Sales Simplified, actually after I had been promoted. But he pretty much nailed the whole concept of how do you become successful as sales. You pick your targets, you create the right weapons to approach them with, and then you execute. So that is, of course, there's a lot more details to that. But by actually applying that, I saw my results get significantly better in year 2. So I did, well, less on the year, so 115%, so actually less than my year 1, but I was in control all the time. It was one slip deal that meant I didn't really break through, but I was still over 100%. So when I got to year 3, I got more ambitious and I accelerated this, even better at managing my theory, and I really used the theory to make up for my shortcomings. For example, I hate cold calling. So I came up with a way how to manage my partners and manage them much better and make them into my extended sales force and so on, which ultimately led me to really succeed in my field and create a monopoly within one of my solutions. So end of year 3, I had closed 55 deals, which is a lot compared to what normally SAP people do. And 33 of them was within a very specific solution. And I had 60 accounts, and we already sold to about 15 of them before. So when I ended my tenure and moved on, I had basically created a monopoly for my solution with the biggest accounts in Denmark, and had to move on because I ran out of customers. So
now, is there one secret that you would say made all the difference in accelerating your sales?
I would say, and it's unfortunately, what we often do is we spend 5 years in university, we learn a ton of great theory, then we go out into the field, and whatever they taught us, our learning stops there. I would say my secret is always be curious, see what can improve my game. Is it what my colleague do? Is it what's in a book? Is it something else? So I really think that's key. Keep on learning. because sales today in 2019 is very different than what it was before 2008. We talk a lot about dumb and smart money. So if we don't evolve as salespeople all the time and stay relevant, like the internet, everyone have access to most of the stuff I can tell them. So if I don't keep on finding ways of being relevant, you're going to get in trouble.
Now, talking about the future of sales,
Yeah.
some people argue that AI and maybe robots will take over. What is your view?
Well, if you go back 20 years, they said there wouldn't be a stock market today. It would already be automated and done by computers. It still exists. We're working with humans, and humans ultimately buy from humans. Yes, we can automate things. We can get a lot smarter. There are some beautiful tools in the market that can help me predict which customer will most likely buy. But we're dealing with people. And I'm not saying we cannot build an AI, but if we look at the future and so on, they do say we will reach something that resembles human intelligence in about 50 years. Until we can create somebody that can replace a human being, I don't believe sales will go away. Sales is a person thing. We connect emotionally to other people. Sales is also, there's so many variables. I have closed deals in my history where I didn't sell value to the company I was selling to. I sold specifically to a person who wanted to improve that person's own resume. So that person had a career aspiration and needed to show that he could implement some software, which necessarily was not, it turned out it was good for the company as well, but that was a primarily selling argument. Also using fear, as they say in the startup environment, it's much easier to sell painkillers than vitamins. And so we deal with human emotions a lot in sales. I would say one of my secrets when I present is my passion, because passion is funnily enough contagious. I don't really see how an AI can be passionate and contagious in being passionate about something. So that's, I don't say we can be replaced, we can be enhanced. I do think that if you look at a company like Palantir, who talk a lot about enhanced intelligence and how we are enhanced by IT, I think we can use that a lot in IT and IT sales. So we work hard on right now providing better information, better insight, access to information that can make a difference. So if I know more, I once had a manager who said he didn't want to be hindered by knowledge when he went to a customer meeting. I'm the opposite. The more I know, the better I am usually. So I do think technology will enhance the way I sell and make me a better seller. And I think the salespeople who use technology right to get that insight, whether it's LinkedIn and many other sources to get insight on what they're selling and who they're selling to, will have an edge over everyone else. So they will be enhanced by smart machines, but they will never be truly replaced.
Now, Christian, looking back over your career,
Yeah.
would you say there was a major turning point where things could have gone different, but you took a decision to go this way?
Well, it's really interesting. I had an amazing opportunity on my last year as a salesperson in SAP, where I knew some senior executives was coming in and talking about how was our year gone so far and so on. So I jumped the opportunity, took a lot of my theory, how I worked, and actually decided to present it to the executives. And that was a key turning point career-wise, because I actually chose to leave SAP shortly after that, because I didn't manage to get a promotion to sales manager at that given point in time. It went to somebody else external. But I hadn't even made it out of SAP before one of these SVPs who saw my presentation say, I want you back. I want you to do that on regional level, what you have done for yourself in Denmark. And that was, I would say, the key turning point when I was hired back, going from a normal salesperson to VP level basically overnight. So, and that was based on the way I worked and used my theory and translated that theory into execution. Because most people are either amazing theoretically or amazing in execution. It's few individuals, and I keep searching for them, that manage to take theory and turn it into action. But that is truly when we excel. I sold to finance departments, and I sold a lot of software to finance department. And most finance departments have their budgets and so on. And balanced scorecard was a big theory. But turning that strategy into execution, well, that's where most CEOs is fired. And I managed to do it on a smaller level, and they asked me to do it on a bigger level. Now I then moved from that role and now have a much wider focus. So I look across everything, not only specifically finance, which was the area I covered before.
And Christian, what is driving you today?
I don't know, hate is a strong word, but status quo is the danger. I really love to transform. I really embrace coming up with new and innovative ways of using technology, using smarter ways of working into making us better at what we do. So I'm part of the COO organization right now, and that whole operational aspect, I really like strategy, but what really drives me is when I can turn strategy into excellent execution, see the result, create a closed loop, and repeat that. That is really what drives me. So I'm very project driven. I like my projects. I love starting. I'm not so great at the standard operational work, doing the same thing over and over and over again. I like the novelty and the innovation in what I work with.
And you're also in charge of 1 billion lives, I believe, in your region?
Yes, that's correct. It was handed over to me this year. I'm, you can say, the sponsor and the project program lead. I have people doing most of the practical things. But I really see 1 billion lives as one of a very, very interesting initiative. To boil it down to one word, it's social entrepreneurship. And we all talk about, so 1 billion lives is basically helping 1 billion people on this planet. So it's a truly global initiative within SAP. But really the way we do it is what I find so interesting, because we have the classic corporate social responsibility programs and so on where we do things. But what we do with 1 billion lives is it's basically a case competition inspired by what business school runs and other entrepreneurship companies run. So we have a ton of these within the entrepreneurship scene where we see pitch competitions and so on. Demo days is very popular. But we do the same here, but around social topics. So we have to remember SAP is a for-profit company, and it's great when we help people. But our continuous success is also depending on us actually being able to make money. So what we look into is things like sustainable cities. It's great, it transforms people's life, but it's still also business for SAP. So we really are trying to combine social with doing smart businesses. And the way we do it actually with these initiatives is we run this competition. We have what we call idea factories. We're running 14 across the region right now. Expect about 250, 300 people going in there, doing about 40 submissions. We pick 1 or 2 winners, send them through a school, what we call an accelerator, which is the same startups go on these days. And then we pick the very best, take those people out of their regular roles, because this is just anyone in SAP can participate. Take them out of their regular roles, put them in a separate organization, give them enough money to run for about 2 years, and say, prove that this works, and they can start working on that solution and creating that new product internally in SAP with a job security and work with something they're passionate about, which is truly, truly transforming. We have both the social arm here, but we also do have a only for profit. So a good example is the tool Room, for example, was developed that way.
Now, Christian, let's talk about leadership.
Yeah.
What, and I know it's a big question, but what does the future of leadership mean to you?
I think leadership, and especially the future of leadership is that I think my key point about future leadership, it's a very good question, is transparency and honesty. There was a time where there was a nice and need to know. In this day and world where we need actions everywhere in the organization, there is no such thing as need and nice to know. There are some legal requirements that means I cannot share some data specifically at a given point in time. But otherwise, the more people know, the more empowered they are and the better they can execute. So I think that is really key. It was a General McChrystal who wrote a book about the topic around how the military has transformed the way they work, about being super transparent in military, which normally is never transparent, but by being super transparent, sharing information, aligning people with information because everyone knows everything, they were much more capable of taking much quicker action. And in a world where quick action is essential for survival of companies, I think that transparency, that information sharing on the right level is key.
And what have you learned from your own journey that you would consider most important for building future leaders?
It is think end-to-end There's written a lot of books about extreme ownership and so on, but it is not just something. It is just not theory. It is the truth. You need to look outside of your own area. You need to, the most important thing you can do as a leader, I'm not talking a manager, that's a little bit different, but as a leader, is that you align people. You help create that vision and you make them run in the same direction. Because there's a massive tendency, if you look at employee engagements and so on, that they might not be high. It's so key. Everyone has the same vision. You are, and this is very important as a leader. They might be working for SAP, but I am a leader, is the face of SAP for these employees. Ultimately, they will see Bill McDermott, our CEO, and so on various occasions, but day to day, I am the face of SAP to these employees. So if I don't treat them well, if I don't help them with the vision, with the transparency and things like that, they're not able to deliver 100%. And in a big company, it's very easy to drown in bureaucracy if we don't align people.
And Christian, when you speak to aspiring leaders, what is it you tell them they should focus on for future-proofing their career?
That's a really good question. Well, first of all, make sure you quickly manage people. I was fortunate enough to be a sergeant at the age of 20, where I had 10 people I was responsible for. So you see many people who get leaders, become leaders later in life, have a lot of things they have to get rid of because suddenly they're in power. So I think the quicker you can have somebody report to you, the better. Whether it's in a McDonald's or wherever it is, it's great because you get to lead people, and it is very different. And you need to connect with leadership and find out if it is you, because not everyone actually should be leaders. We have a lot of leaders who are not true leaders. They just want the rank and the big salary, which necessarily might not be bigger when we talk sales. I have had salespeople who made more money than me. But it is key you find out whether you're motivated by doing things through other people. The worst thing you can do as a leader is try to do it all yourself and be the superhero. It's much better that your employees are the heroes around you and you're just the one pulling the strings and make sure they're successful. Because if they're successful, you will become successful.
Now, Christian, let's talk about technology.
Yeah.
What are the tools of technology that you would recommend future leaders should learn and master?
Well, first of all, and we live in a connected world, so become the master of LinkedIn. Manage your network. Because networks are essential. Get to know the right people. So LinkedIn is really a key tool. Number 2 is, and I think that's a key point, especially if you want to become a leader and work high in an organization. If we look at C-level executives, they speak Excel. So even though you might not be a finance master or whatever, having a master in finance and accounting, make sure you get to know how to speak Excel. So understand financial numbers, because ultimately when you get to C-level and higher in the organization, it's all about the numbers. So if you don't master the technology to talk about numbers, well, then you're going to have an issue. And then I would also recommend, please spend some energy on PowerPoint and learning PowerPoint. And I could mention a number of other tools. Sure. But PowerPoints are essential in terms of communicate clearly. And communicate clearly is so important as a leader. If you don't communicate clearly, they will not get where they're supposed to go, and you're going to have an issue. PowerPoint is excellent for that, but it is so often used wrong. So spend energy on figuring out how to create beautiful PowerPoint presentations. I will highly recommend look into the startup world when they talk about investor pitches. There's some very, very good inspiration for never make your slide deck more than 10 slides and things like that. We have a tendency to think it's a word tool. It is PowerPoint. It's significantly different. Then finally, one thing that's key for me, and that's a personal thing, is I'm very, very disciplined around how I manage what I do, how I spend my time. I try not to waste my time because, well, it's the non-recurring asset I have is my time. I use Outlook to manage my time with tasks and so on. I use a framework written by David Allen called Getting Things Done. It's inspired by it, at least. Right. You can implement it in a number of tools. There's great tools around. I did it in Outlook because it integrated with my emails where I receive hundreds every day, so it makes my life easier. I'm sure there's better tools out there. But I think a time management tool is essential in our day and age. The classic old to-do list is not going to hack it in this confusing world, and especially not if you want to be a leader and have many, many multiple balls in the air all the time. So I would say figure out a way how to manage your time better. That's where I see most people fail when they move up in the organization. They get stressed, they forget about the employees because they can't manage their own calendar. So manage your time, whether you use Outlook and so on. I've never been a big fan of executive assistants and so on, because I do think that I should be able to manage my own time, otherwise I am in trouble.
And Christian, when it comes to social media,
Yeah.
what is it you tell your future leaders? How should they go about managing social media, and how should they go about building their personal brand on social media?
Fully agree. We live in a time and age where social media is extremely important, but I think sometimes the importance of social media is a little overstated, especially when we talk sales, we talk about social selling. Truth is, social media is another channel. Whether I use a phone, I use an email, or I use LinkedIn or whatever, it is just a different channel. The message has not changed significantly. It's just a way to enhance the way I sell. So I just have more ways of reaching people. But I do think it's key that you are professional in social media. If you're a public person, you will have employees as a future leader. Don't have a public Facebook profile with a lot of you've been out partying pictures and stuff like that. It's okay to be human, but don't be naughty human. Make sure that you are professional across all media. Right. So be careful what's out there. So it's very important that you manage that, and you manage it early in your career. So clean up your Facebook. Make sure it's also part of your professional identity. Because your employees, the first thing when you get employees is they're going to look at you at Facebook, they're going to look at you at LinkedIn, they're going to look up your Instagram. And you really want to make sure that there's a consistent picture of who you are across all these different sources.
Now, Christian, as a mentor to future leaders, can you maybe share a success story or two where you mentored a youngster and that person took your advice to heart?
I actually think if I look at future leaders and how to mentor them, I can come up with a number of examples. I have a very giving mentoring relationship right now with a startup where I do mentoring around. Actually, I think the founder is older than me, or at least same age, but he's completely new to this game. So I'm doing mentoring around how to build a sales organization, how to set up the organization. It's extremely giving. And after a number of failed hires in finding the right salespeople and so on, I think we're finally getting him there. And then it's very embracing to see a person who have no experience with selling is actually really starting to take the first step. He started doing cold calling himself. He's the CEO of still a very small company and became extremely successful with cold calling after a number of mentoring sessions. He now understands sales. He recently asked me, I don't understand, I must be doing something wrong in sales meeting. They don't buy at the first meeting. He said, it seems like I have to have more meetings. I said, you're completely right. You're selling a service. So it requires multiple meetings. If I could close after first meeting, I could save a lot of money on my sales force. Then I didn't need so many. So that's been a very given experience for me. Also, in my current job, I regularly coach, for example, our academy grads. So we have our sales academy in SAP with very young people around how to manage their pipeline. And I would say the one thing I think I succeed in mentoring these young people is look through the noise. We're a big company. There's a ton of people in this company who all have an agenda. They all wanted them to sell something specific. They all want you to do something specific. They have to look through that noise and they have to learn how to focus. Because otherwise they keep on boiling the ocean until they have to find a new job and they have never gone anywhere. I think focus in a world with so many options is the hardest thing. So that's the one thing I keep saying to our academy grads. Figure out where you want to go, focus and focus and focus on it.
And Christian, are there any role models of leadership or maybe models of leadership that you recommend future leaders should study?
Oh, there's many. If you want to be a great presenter, look at how Steve Jobs did it, but Bill McDermott as well is amazing on a stage, great at connecting with the audience. My recommendation would actually be find various areas of leadership and build that eclectic person you want to be, because it's great to find a great inspiration, but also find out what's your own strengths. There are some things you can do and some things you can't do. And by realizing what your own strengths are and build on them, instead of trying to fix all your weaknesses, statistically, you will be more successful. So I would say presentation, Steve Jobs, startups, There's many great people behind starting companies, but I would say, especially some of the venture capitalists, a great inspiration for how to build a company and so on. Elon Musk, for example, is a great example of an innovator who can drive, who can sell passion within an organization. So I would say there's so many great people to look into, and I would recommend you read a lot of books on the topic and find out who can help you in your various areas. So yeah, going all the way back to Roosevelt had his 13 virtues he lived through and went through them and enhanced every week. He had a new virtue. That in itself would be a great inspiration. So I would say go find what inspires you. I have multiple. Read Sun Tzu's Art of War, which inspired me as a leader and think like a leader and think of strategy. So I would say there's not a one-size-fits-all, and it would be hard for me to name drop all of them. So I've been very selective which learnings I've taken from who.
And Christian, how can our listeners get hold of you, and where can they follow you?
I primarily use LinkedIn as a channel, so I'm very happy to connect with people on LinkedIn, so they're welcome to reach out to me. I would say actually I've been a little less active than usual on LinkedIn, but normally I'm quite active in sharing posts and so on. They're very welcome to reach out to me. And if anyone has any specific questions, I have this one rule: I always answer an email, unless it's a very rude salesperson. So if they write to me, I'll be happy to write back. InMail is an amazing format for that. So they're very welcome to write to me on LinkedIn and using InMail.
And last but not least, Christian, is there one piece of advice that you would really like to leave with future leaders that they should implement in their own life?
Yeah, number one is be passionate. If you're passionate, you're going to go far. You might start a company and fail, but as long as you're passionate, you will most likely get up again and do it all over. When your passion is gone and you're not passionate about what you do, well, you will not succeed. So I would say make sure you foster and build on that passion. It will take you extremely far.
Well, Christian, thank you very much.
Thank you. My
for sharing
pleasure.
your insights and your wisdom, and reminding us that passion, energy, and focus are key to success.
Definitely.